Good morning, everyone. My name is Ronald Braven. I'm from PaloAlto Networks. Mainly, I think you know us already. Today I want to talk about detecting, preventing, and predicting the unknown threats. So, of course, everyone knows that a lot of things changed during the years, right? So, our users moved out of the office, out of the perimeter. The data is moving already to the cloud, and now we see a big shift of all the applications going to the cloud as well, so SaaS applications, using different applications, different units to get our data. And the next new thing, of course, we all heard about it, and most likely a lot of people are talking about it, the Internet of Things. So basically, more and more things connected to the Internet, to our networks, and we need to find ways to prevent our assets, our data, and our users, of course. So if you look at the new challenges of today, the physical and the cyber security is blended, right? So because you need to have cybersecurity on your own laptop, right? If you're working from somewhere else, from the internet at the McDonald's or the Starbucks. Applications and data, as I said, they are massively aggregated and available for everyone. So it's so easy to share your presentation, your numbers on Box, and you have to be very careful who you share it with and how to export those information to others. And of course, only to the others you want to have the information. And another thing, which is a big it can be a big pro for us, but it is also a big pro for the hackers, is the compute power is limitless. Because if you look at that, we have to think about who do you think is winning the game, right? Are that the bad guys or are the good guys like we? So we have to think about it. So there are some reasons why it's very difficult for us to win the game. So first of all, why are the bad guys winning, right? And here you can see some reasons out of our control, which makes it very difficult for us. So one of the things is, there are countries in the world, they don't punish the bad guys, right? They don't go after them. We talked about the regulations later on, but a lot of countries worldwide, they don't investigate in cybercriminals, they don't judge them, and so they can easily go and do the bad things. Another thing is, there are countries as well, they hire people to breach our networks, right? So everyone knows about the famous Chinese groups of actors. They are really bad and they're really after our stuff. And another one is, it's really hard for us as good guys to get the right security professionals on board to protect our assets, our data, and our persons. So, and of course, cybercrime pays off. It's always, or most of the times, it's a money game, right? If you can breach a system, you can install your ransomware, you can get and collect your ransom, or you can steal the data and can sell the data for you. So it's most of the times, besides the guys who are motivated, like hacktivism or others, they maybe want to screw up your systems, but most of the time it's all about the money. So, and there are some things, some reasons under our control. So it's about the history, right? So we all have a firewall. Most likely we have a proxy, AV on the endpoint, and maybe AV on the network. But the question is, are they preventing or are they detecting only? So most of the components out there, the security components out there in the field, they are really focusing on the detection. And then post-mortem, if something happened, it goes to the professional, which is really an expensive one, and maybe you don't have the right expertise on board to find and define the impact of the breach. So that's really difficult. False positives is also a thing that is really make us nervous, right? Because if you are blocking some communication to the internet or to an application that is really crucial for your company, you don't want to be uncertain about blocking the bad things, right? So you need to be sure that the things you are blocking, the files, the communication, etc., is absolutely bad news for your company and not a false positive. And the attackers know about that, right? So they are playing around with the tactics and the techniques that they come up with unknown threats that are really are similar to false positives. So it's all in their favor. It's all about timing, right? So because it's really hard to define manually so many events that you see every day in your network environment or in your infrastructure environment. So it's really a big challenge for us. So we are almost always too late to protect against the unknown threats. So one of the things they are using is polymorphism, and I'm sure everyone knows about it, but I took the Wikipedia. So it's an occurrence of more than one form in the same population of species. So what does it mean? So if you get your hands or you created yourself a good piece of malware, ransomware, it's so easy today to generate thousands of variants of the same piece of malware or the same piece of ransomware. And to give you an example, and I know it's really hard to see, but for example, one of the malware that we saw last year, Keleti, is not that very active anymore, but we saw 136,000 unique samples of the same piece of malware. So think about that. So if you have detection tools, they have to detect it over and over again. And the bad guys are really smart, and they can crypt it and change the format so in a certain manner that your detection tools are really hard to detect this kind of variants of the same piece of malware. And if you look at this, stats over here, from the 136,000 variants, the number one was only seen 140 times globally. So that means that there are a lot of variants. So the top 3, 4, let's say it like we saw it 100 times globally, worldwide, in our customer database. And then the rest is less than the hundreds. So every variant is only seen a couple of times. So every piece, every new variant of that Keleti, for example, is new for your company. It's unique and never seen before. Even the Keleti is not a very comprehensive or very difficult one to detect. Every time it's a new one that your detection tools need to go after and find and determine the verdict and say, okay, this is a new piece of malware. But it is not a new one, it's just a new variant of it. And you see this kind of campaigns last forever. So the first variants we observed in 2011, and the last one was observed like a couple of days ago. So still, the bad guys are pretty lazy. That's a good thing. They pick the same kind of malware over and over again, crypted, so it's undetectable for the normal detection tools in your security posture. And then they try to infect your system and breach your organization again. So how do we create it? Automation. They are masters in using the computing power there is available worldwide, right? So they have their own Amazon instances, they have their own cloud-based services. They share and work together, collaborate with each other, just to avoid detection in our environments. So, number one lesson I would say is we can't win as humans against machine automation. So we need to come up with machine and automation as well. So your security posture should adapt the new reality as soon as it can, right? So it's really necessary to automate the process of detection. Human intervention in the detection and the prevention is a losing battle, if I can say it like that. So, but if you are detected, why not prevent it, right? So there are different reasons. So first of all, you need to be in every part of your infrastructure. Of course, everyone has a parameter firewall, right? So dividing the internet, the bad outside world, with your internal network. But what about the users connecting to the Wi-Fi? Are that only your users, your employees, under your control, or are there other companies, third parties, that can connect to that, to that Wi-Fi? Or your print service can be used to set up an hack. So maybe you want to separate your service, or your print services in a different zone in your network as well. And if you talk about all the changes that we see out there happening, so the data is not anymore in your data center, or maybe partly in your data center and partly in the cloud. So you need to come up with security in the cloud as well. Same for your users that are on the road, so you need to have VPN clients or whatever. So you need to be on a lot of places in your network. So that means an investment, absolutely. But it's necessary to prevent against the bad guys. And of course, it's easy to block what we've seen before, right? So if you have a system, a platform we call it, once it is detected somewhere in your environment, or maybe in an environment of another customer, it's easy to block it from that moment on. But it's really hard and more difficult to block the unknowns. So you have to come up with better detection and prevention methods. And the last one, you have to be sure that it is really bad news. It's a real threat and not a false positive. Because if you and your systems, as a system integrator or maybe IT manager, if your security is failing, IT or the CEO will think you are failing, right? So you are disturbing the business continuity, that kind of thing. So you have to be sure that the detection and the prevention is right, only blocking the bad. So if you look at what we are observing, this is done by an investigation. So if you have different security components, like point solutions, on average, we see more, every customer sees more than 10,000 events per month, security events, right? So your firewall is detecting something, or your proxy is detecting something, or your endpoint security is taking care of something. So, and if you look at that, 64% are duplicates. So they were observed in the firewall, or maybe URL filtering, downloading a malware, so your endpoint was also part of the whole security security posture. So a lot of duplicates. 52% still are false positives, and we need a lot of human inspection, because most of the point solutions, your URL filtering, together with your firewall, with your endpoint, your proxy, etc., your IPS, not to forget the IPS, they are point solutions, and therefore we need to come up with SIEM tools, that kind of things. But the SIEM tools are also a lot of human intelligence put it in the SIEM tool to come up with some value information about what has happened. And if you think about it from a different perspective, this is a fairy tale from India. 6 blind men, and they need to come up with the truth. But look at the picture. So they are facing, and they cannot see it, they're facing an elephant, but the first one who is touching his, what is it, the bone, he thinks it's a spear. And the other one touching his nose, he thinks it's a snake. And the other one on the back, he thinks it's a rope. And this is what's happening in your environment if your point solutions are only seeing a part of the whole truth, the whole context. URL filtering is only blocking, for example, a URL because it's a bad reputation. But is he aware of the malware? If it's executed, that it's setting up new communications to command and control servers? Not at all. Is there any vulnerability part of that threat? They don't know about it. So it's separated solutions which make it very hard. So partial visibility minus the broader context is flawed conclusions. In other ways, if you only detect a part of the threat, you can only prevent partly against that unknown threat. So how do you can prevent the news? The good news, the technology is there to do a good job for you. The key element over there is that once one of the components, can be the AV, can be the IPS, can be the URL, the firewall itself, etc., once something bad is detected, the whole infrastructure needs to be programmed, saying, okay, we want to take care of all steps of the cyber or the whole cyber attack kill chain. So you want to block the vulnerability, you want to block the command and control service, you want to make sure that the AV is kicking in once we see the same sample again, etc., etc. So it's really key that it's fully automated. The bad news is, especially with networking, it's pretty hard to do it real time. Everyone can talk about it real time, we can block real time, but it's really hard to block all threats real time. So either it's undetectable if the malware or the threats are really sophisticated, or we arrive late. So we have to come up with better ideas on this topic. So how we can do that? We think big data and big data analysis is a really key element in this particular detection and prevention strategy. So everyone, hopefully everyone, is already having a firewall, URL filtering, proxy, sandbox solution. And a sandbox solution normally is about static analysis. So just looking into the structure of a sample and saying, okay, we see a Microsoft Word document and there is a macro running or there is some embedded code in it. So we're pretty sure that something is going to happen if this Word document is opened on your machine. Then we have the dynamic analysis. So we will let the sample run in the sandbox itself. And then, based on that, we record all the bad things, come up with indicators of compromise, and then we can block it again. But the third thing we can add with big data analysis is statistical analysis. So the good example for big data analysis is a medical one. So more and more hospitals, universities, etc., they have so much data, and now they are able, with computing power, which is limitless with Amazon, with Microsoft, etc., they can come up with new ideas about what is happening. So, for example, we have a female. She has hypertension, and she has some other issues as well. And then, through the years, you will find out that every woman that has the same kind of pattern, the same kind of indicators of compromise, let's say it like that way, like high blood cholesterol, etc., you can come up and predict the future, say, okay, we saw this happening with 3 or 4 girls, or maybe 1,000 women, and then they will die on whatever kind of disease. So we can start to predict. In the automotive, you see the same kind of things happening. So they collect all kind of big data for you, and then they find out, hey, if this is happening with the engine, in combination or in combination with other things, the motor will collapse within a month. So they can come back to the customers and say, okay, you need to come to the garage. We need to fix something for you before it's broken. This is the same thing we are doing in big data in terms of cybersecurity. So first of all, you need to detect the indicators of compromise, right? So if something happened, you need to detect it. And then do a lot of analysis, big data, the correlation, and then you can come up with all kind of extra information on top of that. And of course, if something bad is happening, you need to reprogram your security posture right away, based on the statisticals. So how does that look like? On the right-hand side, you see high-value indicators. So this is statistical analysis. So one indicator of compromise, maybe it is just a registry change on the machine once it's run in the sandbox solution. Maybe it's a communication to a newly found command control server. So we come up with static analysis, saying, okay, this was only observed 30 times in malware situations. We never saw it in benign situations and good situations. So most likely that if we see another sample coming in and sent to the sandbox, and we detect it over there, and most likely, based on the statistics, setting up a command control traffic to the same command control server, we're pretty sure it's malware. And the more data you have, the more you can combine and find new patterns and new correlations to find it. The good thing is, with all this kind of information, it's not only about the preventing based on the statistics, but you can also give more context for us, right? To speed up the detection and prevention strategy for your own organization. So it's more powerful for everyone if your firewall is blocking some traffic or some files that you directly can see, hey, based on what we already know from billions of samples, we know this is a part of a cryptoware or a crypto wall campaign or the whatever kind of unknown malware that we detected. So it gives you full context around what is happening. Who was the actor? What do we know more about this campaign? And give me more information and context around it, just to prioritize the events that you're seeing. And we are filtering out, that's the good part with PaloAlto Networks, we already filter out a lot of the things because we have prevention in our DNA. So first of all, we reduce the attack surface big time by saying, okay, are you allowed to use this application from this part of the network, for example? And if you're not, we will block it right away. If there is, I don't know, a screensaver file part of that communication, so we're focusing on the content, is screensaver files, is there any business reason to see people downloading screensaver files? I don't think so, right? So in the past, when we all had a Windows 95 machine, it was pretty cool to show your colleagues, hey, I have a really fancy moving screensaver, but today there is no business reason for a screensaver file. But guess what? Screensaver files were part of some of the ransomware campaigns that get hit on your network. So it's really key to focus on reducing the attack surface, so make sure that only the high-risk events still showed up in your security operations center, and don't spend your valuable time or your security operation guys' time by focusing on the duplicates, on the false positives, etc. So we really want to speed up the process on this topic. So to come up with better solutions, in our opinion, you need to focus on prevention technology first. And another topic, which I absolutely encourage you guys to think about that. Think about threat sharing. Everyone understands that we, as one of the industry companies, we share information. We're not sharing your documents that are sent to our data centers, for example, but we will share the threat via the Cyber Security Threat Alliance. So with McAfee, with Symantec, with Fortinet, with others. So the industry is already sharing a lot of information. And I'm sure that here in this country, the government is also sharing some indicators of compromise with you. If something is found which is really hitting this country, the government or some agencies are sharing IPs or indicators of compromise with you guys. But think about initiatives in your industry. So if you're financial, maybe you have to search for the financial groups so you can share with other financials. Maybe in this country, maybe with others in Germany, maybe in the US. The only thing we can beat the bad guys is sharing as much of information and automatically adapt the information to your own security posture. So once you get information from us, or from the government, or from one of your industry peers, you need to make sure that you directly can see the value and say, okay, is this a really an indicator of compromise I want to block? And then your systems, your security systems, should automatically be reprogrammed on the fly to prevent against bad and the unknown threats. So I started with most of the bad guys are focusing, or the goal for them is money. And one way we can win the fight is to flip the economics of the unknown threats. So as long as the cost of a successful breach is cheap, they will continue to breach your systems, our systems, the other one's systems of your neighbors. So if we can flip the economics and say, okay, we make sure that it's really, really expensive for the bad guys to hit our systems. It's paying off because there are some studies around it, so that if they are not successful in the first 24 hours or 48 hours, they will move on to another victim. Of course, if you are the target, you're really targeted, that's a different story. But in general, most attacks are not targeted at all. They just want to get quick money. So how do we change the economics on that one? Again, it's sharing. Because nothing is more annoying than if you block something and you find something interesting. If you don't share it with the rest of the audience, the rest of the audience can be hacked in the same way how they breach your system. So as soon as we start sharing, and PaloAlto Networks in nature is already doing that, so if a Japanese customer finds or is hit by a new sample of malware, and we detect command control traffic, or we found a new vulnerability, everyone in this room, with our solution, of course, is protected by that one in 5 minutes. So, and it's working bidirectional, right? So every time one of our customers finds something new, unknown, and we run it in the sandbox, and we have the statistical analysis, every customer is protected from that moment on. And therefore, the bad guys need to come up with a new piece of malware. They have to come up with a new command control server. They have to come up with maybe new vulnerabilities. So the cost of a successful attack for their guys is really rising. And then if they tried it several times, they spent some money, and it's not big money, but it can cost them a few $1,000. If they fail over and over again, they will move on, because they need to make money. First of all, they need to get the ransomware from your organization, or maybe the data, so they need to earn money quick. And again, the security enforcement, if you look at the first slide I started with, you need to be on every part of your network. You need to be in the cloud, you need to be at the place where the SaaS applications reside, the data resides, the users, etc. So in our philosophy, all those components have to work together, send the information, and share the threat intel back to all the enforcement points. We do it in our organization, of course. We call it a platform, but we share the information with our peers in the industry as well, just to make everyone's life better and safer. So 5 thoughts to finalize my session. Think about sharing more information with your security partners. Can be us, can be your peers in the industry, maybe the government, or whatever kind of initiatives there are here. So collaborate with the industry communities. So an example, the FS ISAC, the national ones, but also the vendors. Think about that we have the CPU power in our hand as well, but we need to rethink about how we want to do security. So if you think about doing the advanced threat analysis, can you do it in your own data center, your own on-premise sandbox solution? That's pretty hard to do it, because you're still focusing on what you're seeing locally, and maybe not take all the information in consideration what was seen in Japan or in America or in the Netherlands or whatever. So it's key to use the cloud, the unlimited compute power, as the bad guys are doing as well. Oops, I switched it off. And then you have to focus on the complete attacks lifecycle. Not only on a binary, so not only on that sample that was observed with your AV or in your network, but you have to take all these steps, identify them, and then block it through all the attack lifecycle. So from the infection, from the communication back to the bad guys, the command control traffic, and also what is observed if they want to spread within your network. So with that, I would say the integrated and fully automated solution that you can find on the market, we call it platforms, they are the enemy of the attacker. Because this approach will make sure that it costs a lot more money for them to be successfully breaching your environment, and therefore they will move on to other victims which are easier to attack and breach. All right, thank you. 13 seconds left. Any questions? Nope. All right, thank you so much. Have a good day.